Hi folks, it's the bald guy again. Earlier today I made a video on polishing knives, and I told you I couldn't find a reasonable knife. I had cleaned all the knives in my possession. Well, I just wasn't satisfied, so I've kept looking, and I have found here one of my oldest knives. This knife, I'm 58. This knife must go back close to 50 years. It's a plastic handled Barlow that has been in my fishing tackle box and toolbox and just a variety of places over the years. I kind of retired this knife many years ago when I started getting interesting and had the ability to get better knives. But if you look at this knife, you see the oxidation on the blade is substantial. It's that way on both sides. The bolsters are still pretty shiny. That's because they're too cheap to corrode. But just to show you, let me tilt our camera down. Just to show you how effective case paste is, and of course I have no idea of the results. This is a much cheaper knife and blade, but I've got my little homemade strop here, and I'm just going to brace the knife so that all the weight is on the wood. And I'm going to start rubbing. Little circular motions, and then out on the end of the blade, I guess I'm going a little more horizontally. One of the things that polishing a knife tends to do is to reveal all of the marks that you place on a knife over the years with shabby sharpening techniques, and I have tried files. I've used flat files. I've used like chainsaw round files. Whatever I found, usually in my dad's toolbox, by the way. Found an old whetstone at some point. And yes, grinding wheel. We'll do this one side. I'm going to put a little more paste on here just because this knife has not been touched up in all these many years. And I'm rubbing up here on the tang of the knife as well, and in the groove next to the tang. I know there's a name for that and I forget what it is. One of the things I learned, I'll admit it, I got interested in making knives by watching Forged in Fire on the television. And as I then did some internet research, and I was reading or it may have even been on YouTube, that I was listening to someone talk about knives, and they said, well, you know, if you're watching that show, you think that a majority of your time is hammering and forging and that kind of thing. He said, no, not at all. Very little time is spent doing that. What you're really spending your time is sanding and polishing and grinding and filing and all of these other things. So in just the minute or two we've done that, there is the unpolished side, and in less than a minute and a half, we've gone from there to there. Let me turn it over where I can see it and get the excess off of it here. That's a pretty substantial turnaround. I'm moving the knife just so it will reflect the light because I can't see what the camera's seeing. So if I can do that in just a matter of a minute, imagine what I might do in 4 or 5 minutes. One of the things I have done here by rubbing on this tang, I'm going to do it just a little bit more so you can see it as well. I could not tell you who, oh my, that really did good. I could not have told you who originally manufactured this knife. And again, I cannot see if you can tell that by the reflection, so I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. But the knife was made by Colonial, and Colonial is a well-known maker of inexpensive knives. Back in the day when drugstores were often privately owned before the big chains got involved, and most drugstores were basically small department stores. They had a little bit of everything. I actually went to school with the son of our local druggist, and that drugstore is one of the places I bought a knife just like this. This is probably my second Barlow. if not the first. I don't think it was the first. I think I destroyed the first one. But I bought those things, you know, for 95 cents or $1.95 or whatever it was. We mowed yards to make a little money on the side. So when I am done with this, this might become a candidate for my grandson's first knife. Now, before it becomes his first knife, I'm going to go and severely dull the blades. I want him to get used to handling a knife before I entrust him with a sharp one. And I'll tell you why. His father, who is now in his 30s, look at that. I'm starting to get a mirror finish. Now, it's not exactly mirror, but when you started from here and you've gone to there, it's really something. But his dad, I gave his dad and his older brother knives for Christmas one year. And I explained to them how you handle the back of the knives, never handle the front of the knives. And so help me, that little fella, and that knife was sharp. He opened the knife and he got it to the half stop. And rather than pulling it open, he put his thumb on the blade and pushed it, and he cut deeply into that thumb. And, you know, I had that, gee, I'm guilty, but I told you so moment of life. So just in that little bit of rubbing, I have created a much better appearance for this knife. I'm going to turn the camera off and work on this knife a little longer because, number one, it's tedious, and number two, I've got a dog outside that I've got to go find out what he's doing. So I'll finish up in a few moments and turn it back on and let you see the finished product. But before I do, let me pull out the other blade so you can see as much as possible the polished blade, the unpolished, and then on this side, neither of those are polished on that side. And I'll even polish the back springs as well. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a few minutes. All right, I'm part of the way through my project, but I wanted to show you the contrast of what I'm doing. I started rubbing on the back spring. Again, I'm using nothing but my little, my hand strop, I call it. Look at the back spring. Here on this side, how shiny it is. And that's from rubbing it for a minute or so. And the other side I've yet to treat. So you make quite a difference with this. And of course, that allows me to polish the bolsters working on the outside too. But we'll give you another look once we've polished up the back spring. The funny thing about this one, the back spring actually comes all around. So I'm not sure how we're going to get it uniform looking up on this top side, but we'll see what we can do. All right, we're back with another stage done. I've gone all the way across our back springs and around the corner and even up into the whale. And what I did in the whale is I applied some paste on the edge and simply ran the edge in there. And of course you want to be really careful getting close to your blade, but it's got the surfaces very well. But what I wanted to show you, I've completed the spay blade, or the clip blade I should say. And I wanted to show you, okay, there's one blade. Remember, this is a cheap 50-year-old knife. There you see the two blades side by side. So no, you're not creating a mirror edge, but yes, you are making a tremendous difference. And literally, you know, I get it. I'm a big guy, and people think I'm putting a lot of elbow grease in this, but I'm really not. I'm putting enough, certainly, but it's not like I'm straining to do this. It's just taking the time and doing the repetitions to get your results. And the results are pretty remarkable. So what you can do with this is, if in your part of the country, if you see flea markets or pawn shops or used knives, you can take a used knife that you can really pick up for a song. This knife, if somebody could have gotten $2 for it, they should have taken it. And it will be sufficient for a user or even a gift for a young one. And what I'm thinking about doing, these scales, the handle material is plastic, and one of them is already got some movement in it, and they've actually shrunk over the years, so they're just pulling away from the length of the knife. They're getting a little shorter. There it is. I felt it move. So I'm thinking about just cutting our pins there and preserving the scales as much as possible for a pattern, and then I'll take and outline the scales, especially for where the pin goes. That'll give me my pin placement very well, and then I can I can make the scale longer, and I can remove material as needed until I get it the size that I want. And I may put stag handle or some other material and turn a really cheap knife into both a learning experience and then a very pleasing keepsake. So there's some of what you can do. I'm going to work on this other blade. All right, I've finished rubbing on this knife, and I knew what the knife was. I've got spots all over my glasses. I knew what the knife going was. I know what the knife was going in. I can't talk. It was a knife that had been neglected, it had been abused, it had been used. It's a knife that had aged tremendously, and it was a chief knife going in. So I knew that I would reveal as many marks on the blade as I would cover up. And this kind of stropping and polishing does not remove anything deep into the metal. It removes surface corrosion, and that's only. But I've taken a knife that was, and you saw it, pretty severely corroded, a lot of oxidation. Was able to get a pretty good shine all the way across, even across the surface of the whale, but not down in the whale. And of course, when you're honing and you get out on that edge, you're actually improving your edge as well. So I actually have a very serviceable, a very usable knife from just an afternoon of piddling. This is one of those hot days of summer. The heat index is up around 100. The clouds are billowing outside and we're about to get a thunderstorm. I'm not going to be doing anything else, but I appreciate that I've done something and made something better. So that to me is the goal of any time I spend in the shop. I will tell you that I tried to go over here and use my electric belt sander with the leather strop on it, and after months and months of using, I caught my blade on the strop and I tore my strop. But that actually gave me an opportunity to make another tool that we will be able to use for this kind of work. I'll show you that on a future video. Leave us a like if you appreciate these videos, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you on the next video.